The guy is actually using a higher tier spell that adjusts the territory to give the caster an advantage. Arthur had no idea Faerith even knew a domain spell. With all that water, Feifei takes it a step further and creates a water serpent. But then, the horny teacher, Geist, steps in with an attack of his own. He throws a blue fireball that evaporates all the water in front of him and even lands a hit on poor Feifei's knee, leaving him with a nasty burn. Once Feifei is down for the count, the teacher smugly asks if he surrenders. Not surprisingly, the poor guy concedes. In the crowd, Arthur looks pretty annoyed, watching this bastard of a teacher beat up a student just to stroke his own ego. When poor Feifei comes back, Arthur tries to lift his spirits, telling him he did a great job. The teacher, of course, starts boasting about himself again. He tells everyone that this should be a lesson for them all. One should not be too confident about themselves. While this bastard is completely successful in his plan to humiliate Feifei, the princess isn't about to let this slide so easily. She volunteers to participate. Feifei is bewildered to see this. Even the teacher is thrown off, clearly not expecting or wanting a girl to volunteer. After all, he's a horny sucker, so he can't bring himself to injure a hottie. Arthur remembers that Caitlin has an affinity for ice magic, and she's just witnessed Geist's fire attribute in action. Feifei tries to stop her from going, but she eventually steps down into the arena. The horny teacher feels quite honored to have the princess herself as his opponent, and humbly asks her not to hold it against him if he goes a bit rough. Of course, Caitlin doesn't give much of a response. She quickly conjures her wand and gets ready. The teacher, on the other hand, summons his fire powers again and decides to proceed. Caitlin raises her hand and, with a command, launches needles made of ice. But those are quickly blocked by the teacher's fiery powers. Undeterred, the girl conjures up even bigger needles and throws them down at her opponent. But once again, the bastard's firepower breaks through all the ice coming at him. But this time, the princess switches up her strategy. She quickly splits her big chunk of ice into smaller needles, turning them into a barrage of missiles. The teacher, confident that no petty tricks can work on him, retaliates. But the princess counters his attack with an ice tornado. However, as she tries to control the massive tornado, the fire bullets the teacher launched earlier are heading straight for her. She's completely vulnerable in this critical moment, and both Feifei and Arthur are losing their minds, thinking she's about to get hit. Even the teacher starts to regret throwing those fireballs, realizing too late that the princess has no way to defend herself. Just as the fireballs are mere inches away, an explosion rocks the arena, leaving the entire crowd of students in suspense, wondering what just happened. As the dust begins to settle, the horny teacher frantically searches for the princess in the haze but can't spot her. He glances in both directions and finally sees her on the ground with Arthur, who had intervened at the last possible moment. Arthur isn't messing around. He's completely pissed at this teacher. That horny gorilla can feel the hostility Arthur is exuding. Though he doesn't directly voice his resentment, he plasters a fake smile on his face. While he appreciates Arthur's concern for the princess, he claims it was unnecessary. As far as the teacher believes, he had everything under control. He questions Arthur, asking if a professor from such an esteemed academy would actually put one of his students in harm's way, insisting that he was about to cancel the spell on the spot. Well, that's what you call absolute bullshit, and Arthur knows it all too well. Once a spell attack is fully manifested, it's impossible to cancel it mid-flight. But since Caitlin thankfully didn't get hurt, Arthur has no proof to call out the teacher's lies. In that case, Arthur decides to take a darker step. He resolves to confront this bastard and force him to screw up in front of everyone. So, Arthur requests to join the power demonstration on behalf of his colleague. And of course, this horny bastard is more than happy to oblige. As the princess leaves the arena, Arthur asks her if she's okay, to which she responds that his assistance was unnecessary, but she still thanks him for saving her. After giving her a reassuring smile, my guy summons his weapon of choice. And let me tell you, the weapon Arthur picks is so eye-catching that even this bastard can't help but take note of it. Since Arthur is an augmenter, the teacher decides it's only fair to let Arthur choose the method of combat. But Arthur, being the Sigma he is, casually declares that he doesn't give a damn. This response makes the teacher flinch, and veins start popping out of his forehead in frustration. Yet somehow, he manages to crack a fake smile. Arthur, still cool as ever, gives the teacher the opportunity to use whatever method he's most confident in. Now that Arthur's given him this opening, the teacher decides to make the most of it. Infusing his sword with a serious amount of fire, the bastard smugly claims that he'll try to go easy on Arthur. Now that both contestants are equipped, they finally clash their swords. You can tell that this bastard is putting every ounce of power he can muster into his swings, while still claiming he's going easy on Arthur. But as strong as those swings might be, Arthur is dodging them left and right. After playing this tag game for a few minutes, the horny bastard starts to get annoyed. What's really pissing him off is the fact that Arthur isn't using any spells. He's just strengthening his body and sword with mana. So, in a failed attempt at provocation, the teacher directly calls Arthur a rat for constantly dodging. But Arthur's got sass for days. He fires back, asking this bastard if there's really a point in attacking back when his esteemed professor can't even land a single blow on a first-year student. Of course, the teacher takes the bait and gets provoked as expected, and with all the strength he can muster, he launches an attack that causes a massive eruption of fire. But that still isn't enough to take Arthur down. He continues dodging them left and right. As this game of tag continues, with the teacher giving his all to take Arthur down, the students begin to suspect that this is spiraling out of control. This fight doesn't look like a demonstration anymore. At some point, Arthur decides it's time to finally retaliate. And once he does, my guy easily pushes Professor Geist back. Seeing this, Fei-Fei and the princess are left in awe. Arthur looks like he's on a completely different level. He charges at the teacher and launches a barrage of air blades. No matter how much the professor tries to block these attacks, nothing is able to withstand the mighty wind blades Arthur throws at him. Geist finally falls to the ground, which was his rightful place all along. Once the battle is over, the students break into a round of applause directed to Arthur. After the class wraps up, Arthur tries to catch up with the princess, who's walking ahead. But before he can reach her, Fei-Fei interrupts him, clearly thrilled and eager to express how impressive Arthur was back there. But in return, our boy gives Fei-Fei some props for his own solid performance as well. As the two chat amongst themselves, the princess also joins in. She turns to Arthur and asks his opinion regarding her performance. Well, if Arthur had to be brutally honest in his critique, he'd say that ignoring her defense in order to finish that last spell was her biggest mistake. An awkward silence follows, which only gets more uncomfortable until the princess herself turns around and walks away. As Arthur walks his own path to the next class, Sylvie notices his off-putting expression and asks why he looks so sad. At first, Arthur brushes it off, saying it's nothing and that he's fine. But it's clear that there's something weighing on his mind. You see, not being able to finish off Geist quickly with just his wind attribute made him realize that he has to work a lot harder to get where he wants to be. It's almost noon, and Arthur is looking forward to his next class, Basics of Artificing. The class is all about manipulating and coding mana into objects for specific uses, something Arthur didn't have in his old world. As Arthur takes his seat, another student approaches and asks if she can sit beside him. Arthur gives her permission, and the girl promptly takes her seat. She looks quite shy and reserved. When she tries to introduce herself, all Arthur can hear is mumbling. So Arthur leans a little closer and gently asks if there's something she was saying. The girl gets a little scared and quickly introduces herself as Emily Watskin. In the same breath, she tells Arthur she wants him to become her friend. After this little confession, she feels exhausted and starts dreading how Arthur might react. But to her surprise, Arthur simply extends his hand as a gesture of goodwill and introduces himself. He's more than willing to be her friend, but he wants to start off as acquaintances. The girl gets so embarrassed that her cheeks turn bright red. With a happy smile, she quickly shakes his hand. While Arthur is shaking her hand, he feels the roughness of her palm and the calluses on her hands. She suddenly retracts her hand, thinking he must be grossed out by her dirty hands. But Arthur, being Arthur, doesn't mind at all. He shows her that he has calluses too. The girl perks up with happiness at the realization that he must practice a lot as well. She admires him even more now, especially since he's on the disciplinary committee. For Emily, she really loves artificing, so she spends a lot of time fiddling around with gadgets. But unfortunately, it makes her hands pretty rough. Hearing this, Arthur feels a little jealous. She has such a passion for artificing,